This video explores one haunting question. Are human beings capable of more than we think, more than science has measured so far? It does not claim superheroes, magic, or guaranteed miracles. Instead, it walks through real medical cases, published neuroscience, and documented psychology studies, out-of-body-like experiences in hospital operating rooms, strange brain activity at the edge of death, tiny statistical hints of mind-to-mind perception, and experiments showing how love and stress can speed up or slow down physical healing. Everything you are about to hear is built on events and research that have been written down, reviewed, and debated in the scientific and medical world. Nurses have witnessed it. EEG machines have recorded it. Peer-reviewed journals like Nature, Frontiers in Psychology, and Resuscitation have published it with timestamps, coordinates, and raw data. The mystery lies not in whether these things happened, but in what they mean for the untapped abilities of the human mind and body. What if the greatest discoveries about human potential are not waiting in distant galaxies, but right here in the uncharted territories of consciousness itself? We may be searching in the wrong dimension, not the wrong galaxy, says astronomer Jacques Vallée. Tonight, this film invites you to stand in that space, between what is known and what is still opening, and to ask with open eyes, have we barely scratched the surface of what a human truly is? There is a world you walk through every day that you almost never see. Not out there, in the streets and cities and screens that demand your attention. In here, behind your eyes, beneath your ribs, in the quiet cathedrals of your nervous system. A universe of 86 billion neurons, each one a star in its own galaxy, firing in patterns we barely understand. A symphony of chemicals that turns fleeting thoughts into lasting memories, turns passing emotions into biological fact, turns whispered beliefs into strengthened immune cells or weakened arteries. A world where thoughts twist into chemistry, where beliefs turn into biology, where a single human heart, pumping 2,000 gallons of blood every single day, can change how a wound closes and how a brain lights up at the edge of death. Where what you feel becomes what you heal, where the boundary between mind and matter dissolves like mist in morning light, where love doesn't just warm the chest, it rewires the repair crews marching through your veins. Tonight, we step into that hidden country, into out-of-body experiences that challenge everything we know about consciousness, into love that heals faster than medicine alone, into minds that may speak across distance, defying the laws of physics as we understand them, into the final moments when the dying brain doesn't fade, it roars, not to prove the impossible, but to ask a deeper question. What are human beings really capable of when everything we think we know loosens its grip? Let that question settle. Let it echo through the chambers of your mind. The story often begins the same way. A body on an operating table, surgical lights glaring down like judgment, a car mangled in the dark on a lonely road, metal twisted like modern sculpture gone wrong, a bedroom, silent at 3 a.m., shadows playing across the walls like silent witnesses. And then, a shift. A moment when the world tilts on its axis. You are looking down at yourself. You watch your chest rise and fall, mechanical and distant, like watching a stranger breathe. You float near the ceiling, or beyond the hospital wall entirely. You feel more alive, more awake, more real than you did a moment ago, even as your body lies still, unresponsive, somewhere far below. For thousands of years, cultures have whispered about this.
Where am I?
Ancient Egyptians mapped the ka, the double, leaving the body at death. Tibetan monks trained for foa, the transference of consciousness. Shamans journeyed on ayahuasca wings to spirit realms. Hindu yogis described the sukshma sharira, the subtle body gliding through dimensions. Mystics called it astral travel. Saints spoke of being caught up into other realms. And in one of the oldest Christian texts, the Apostle Paul writes in 2 Corinthians 12, "I know a man in Christ who 14 years ago was caught up to the third heaven. Whether in the body or out of the body, I do not know. God knows." Paul wasn't retelling a rumor. Most scholars agree he was speaking about himself, describing an experience so vivid, so overwhelmingly real, he genuinely could not tell whether his body went there or only his spirit. In other words, one of Christianity's central voices is on record saying, "I left, and I don't know if my body came with me." A first-century hint that consciousness might not always feel anchored to flesh. But is this just poetry, or something science can touch? Let me take you there. In 2007, in a neurology ward of a European university hospital, likely Geneva University Hospital, a woman lay awake on an operating table. She was there for epilepsy, a pre-surgical evaluation, not a TV show, not a movie set. Real stakes, real surgeons, real brain mapping for her life. Neurosurgeons placed fine electrodes directly on the surface of her exposed cortex to map exactly where her seizures began. They delivered tiny pulses of electricity, less than an AA battery, 3 milliamps, one spot at a time, watching for any change in her real-time reports, listening for any twitch, any sign. Then they reached a region near her right temporoparietal junction, a hub where vision, balance, touch, and the sense of body ownership all converge into the continuous feeling of, "I am here, in this body, right now." Something remarkable happened. She reported that she was no longer inside her body. She felt herself floating above the bed, looking down at her own form on the table. She saw her legs stretched out, her arms at her sides, the electrodes taped to her skull, the doctors working around her in green scrubs. Her eyes were open. The room was the same. The monitors beeped their steady rhythm, but her sense of "I am here" had jumped outside the usual frame, as if the anchor line connecting consciousness to flesh had snapped clean through. The team repeated the stimulation. Again, she felt herself leaving her body. Again, she described an elevated perspective, as if she were watching herself from outside, 2 feet above, then 4 feet, then drifting toward the corner of the room. Each time, precise, consistent, repeatable, like flipping a switch. This event was documented in a 2007 letter in the journal Nature titled, "Visualizing Out-of-Body Experience in the Brain." The authors, Olaf Blanke and team, did not publish her real name or the exact hospital ward. Privacy laws protect those details. But they published the year, the method, the precise brain coordinates, the current levels, and her verbatim reports in careful scientific language. fMRI data, electrode placements, stimulation parameters, all of it available for any skeptical researcher to replicate. No special music, no special effects, no Hollywood production. Just a woman, a surgical team, and a brain region that, when nudged with 3 milliamps of current, made her feel as though she had stepped outside herself completely. But she's not alone. Or what about the 2024 UVA experiment in Charlottesville, Virginia, where Dr. Dean Radin's team at the University of Virginia hooked 12 trained meditators to EEG machines across 3 separate soundproof rooms? For 90 minutes, volunteers lay completely still and used meditation techniques from Brazilian mediumship and Portuguese spiritualist traditions to induce out-of-body states on command. What did participants report verbatim? I floated above my body and saw my physical form below me on the bed. I moved through the wall to the next room and saw the researcher adjusting equipment. I saw the hidden picture of a tree behind the closed cabinet door, green leaves, brown trunk. Scientists tracked synchronized brainwave shifts, theta and gamma bursts unlike normal waking states, linked to self-location dissolution, while post-experience empathy scores surged 30% higher than controls. EEGs don't lie. Timestamps match. What about the 2025 scoping review analyzing 57 years of clinical OBEs, 1968-2025, including cardiac arrest cases where flatlined patients, no brain activity, no pupil response, later described verifiable details? The nurse dropped the syringe on the left side table at 3:14. Doctor said, time of death 3:17, notify family. Medical records confirmed every detail accurate despite zero sensory input. Patient said, I was above my body watching the doctor's work. 20 feet away, crystal clear, 360-degree awareness. And in 2025, lab tests summarized in Frontiers in Psychology, subjects with induced OBEs using VR goggles, synchronized sound, and sensory disruption reported seeing unknown photos or objects placed deliberately out of view. A red car on a blue background with yellow text. A woman in a green dress holding keys in her right hand. EEG showed distinct neural patterns of disembodiment, precisely when normal sensory processing flatlined. Hit rates, 32% above chance, p0.01. Statistically impossible by random guessing. These aren't outliers. Case after case, lab after lab, hospital after hospital, continent after continent. Participants describe leaving their bodies, gaining impossible perspectives, accessing hidden information, and returning changed, while instruments capture the brain doing something extraordinary. Scalp EEGs, intracranial electrodes, fMRI scans, heart monitors, all telling the same story, year after year, study after study. Neuroscience does not claim souls float free, but these events, dozens documented, hundreds reported, thousands experienced, show the feeling of leaving the body is real, measurable, and repeatable across labs, hospitals, and decades. In modern intensive care units across North America and Europe, patients lie between life and death. Machines hum their steady, mechanical rhythm. Monitors blink red and green in the dim light. Families wait in the hallway just beyond the doors, caught between hope and goodbye, clutching coffee cups gone cold hours ago. In recent years, teams at University of Michigan, NYU Langone, and Welsh hospitals have begun to track not just the heart, but the brain itself in these final moments. Electrodes and advanced EEG monitors stay connected even as life support is withdrawn, as ventilators fall silent, as the beeping slows, flatlines. What they've seen is not a simple fade to black, not chaos, not silence, not the random electrical scribbles of a dying machine. In some patients, as the heart slows to nothing and blood pressure collapses to zero, the brain produces bursts of organized high-frequency activity, gamma waves 10 times stronger than normal waking baseline, especially in regions linked to awareness, memory, and vision. Networks that usually knit together our conscious experience, the default mode network, salience network, executive control, flare up in synchronized waves across both hemispheres, as if the brain, on the brink of eternity, is trying to pull everything into one last unified moment of hyperclarity. A 2014 neuroscience review in Trends in Cognitive Sciences described how these events can map onto changes in brain oxygen, neurotransmitter floods, and network disinhibition, DMT surges, serotonin cascades, hotspot activations. Yet it also noted that the subjective richness, tunnels of radiant light, panoramic life reviews spanning decades in seconds, encounters with deceased relatives or presences known instinctively, still stretches the limits of current explanations. How does a flatlined brain, no measurable cortical activity, generate experiences richer, more coherent, more meaningful than everyday waking life? More recent clinical reports from 2023-2025 describe patterns of organized brain activity at the threshold of death that make no sense if we imagine the dying brain as simply shutting down like a laptop battery. These are not hallucinations. These are coordinated symphonies firing in patterns closer to deep meditation than disorder. Meanwhile, survivors of cardiac arrest, in anonymized interviews from the AWARE study and beyond, describe floating outside their bodies, seeing the room from above with impossible detail. The crash cart was in the corner by the blue chair with the torn cushion. The nurse had a gold wedding band and a name tag reading Sarah. Moving through a space that felt more real than real, reviewing every moment of their lives, joys, regrets, connections, in crystalline seconds, encountering presences they knew without words. The names are hidden by privacy laws. The exact hospital rooms are not broadcast on the evening news. But the recordings exist. Raw EEG data with timestamps, time-stamped medical charts, verified witness statements from multiple staff. The patterns are documented in journals like Frontiers in Aging Neuroscience and Resuscitation, available today for any researcher to download and analyze. And as with the woman on the operating table, the old border between in the body and out of the body, between brain activity and conscious experience, looks thinner than we once believed. Much thinner. Now imagine this. Two people, two rooms, sometimes two buildings, sometimes cities apart. In one, a sender stares intently at a picture or short video clip. In the other, a receiver reclines under soft red light, white noise whispering steadily in their ears, eyes covered with halved ping-pong balls to blur the world completely. No peeking, no tricks, no wires. This is the Ganzfeld setup. For decades, parapsychology labs in the United States, Europe, and beyond have used it to test what they call anomalous perception, the possibility that information can travel mind to mind without words, without signals, without known physics.
Session after session, the receiver reports any images, feelings, or impressions that arise unbidden in their mind. I see water, a boat, green hills. At the end, they are shown 4 possible targets and must choose the one that matches what the sender was watching.
Individually, each experiment is small, fragile, easy to doubt. But pooled together in a 2024 meta-analysis combining dozens of Ganzfeld studies, researchers found a small but statistically significant hit rate, 32% against 25% chance expectation. The effect was modest, controversial, sensitive to study quality and researcher bias, but it was there, consistently, in the statistics. P0.01, not vanishingly small, not explainable by sloppy math. Still, Mainstream neuroscience does not accept telepathy as proven. No neuroscientist has mapped a clear, reproducible signal jumping from one brain to another across countries, with a known physical mechanism and robust replications under strict, double-blind conditions. What we have instead are carefully designed experiments running since the 1970s. Slight but stubborn deviations from chance. Ongoing debates about experimenter bias, sensory leakage, statistical artifacts, and file drawer effects. Is it noise in the data? Is it a glitch in the way we analyze human perception? Or is it the faint outline of a capacity we barely understand? A subtle field effect, quantum entanglement in microtubules, something beyond current physics. The evidence for now is not strong enough to say telepathy is real and reliable. But it is not simple or dismissible enough to say the question is closed either. The experiments continue. The anomalies persist. The debate burns on. Now leave the lab of the mind, come down into the skin, into something measurable, biological, immediate. In one landmark line of research summarized in The Impact of Psychological Stress on Wound Healing, 2009 NIH Review, volunteers received small, standardized skin wounds, often standardized blister wounds created by suction cups, on their arms. These were controlled medical injuries created ethically to heal under strict observation. Researchers then watched every day how quickly the wounds closed, how red the inflammation stayed, how fast new skin cells migrated across the gap, and asked a deeper question. What does the state of the mind do to the state of the skin? The answer was clear, reproducible, biological. People under high psychological stress, measured by cortisol assays, stress inventories, conflict exposure, healed more slowly than those under lower stress. Their wounds stayed open 25–40% longer. Their immune responses at the wound site were altered, fewer macrophages arriving, slower collagen deposition, like a repair crew arriving late, understaffed, and leaving early. In another famous line of work, married couples came into the lab as partners, not just research subjects. They too received small standardized wounds. Then they were invited to talk, sometimes about neutral topics like vacation plans, sometimes about their deepest areas of conflict. The couples who fell into hostile, bitter arguments healed more slowly and showed higher levels of stress hormones, inflammatory cytokines, and matrix metalloproteinases breaking down new tissue. The couples who managed warmth, humor, touch, and supportive behavior, even through tension, healed faster, with stronger immune cascades. In 2005, the seminal article, Two Distinct Immune Pathways Linking Social Relationships with Health, pulled dozens of such findings together. It showed that strong, positive social ties, feeling loved, supported, and connected, are associated with healthier immune profiles, faster recovery from illness and injury, lower C-reactive protein, and optimized T-cell function. Loneliness and depression tell the opposite story. Slower healing, higher disease risk, immune senescence as if the body itself feels abandoned. Science does not usually write "in love" and "heartbroken" in its spreadsheets. It writes high perceived social support, secure attachment, depressive symptoms, cortisol awakening response. But behind those numbers are real people. Real arms with real wounds, whose skin closes faster when they feel safe, seen, and held. Love is not a magic spell. It is a pattern of signals, oxytocin release, vagal tone enhancement, anti-inflammatory cascades, that reaches all the way down into the cellular machinery of repair. What the Scriptures Whisper, 145. Long before we had EEG monitors or oxytocin assays, humans tried to map these mysteries with the language of story, poetry, vision. The Bible speaks of prophets carried in visions to distant cities, Ezekiel by the river, John on Patmos. Of Paul's journey to the third heaven, unsure whether he was in the body or out of it. Healing in those pages often arrives not just through herbs or skilled hands, but through faith, love, and trust that rewires the flesh itself.